So in this video, we're going to look at some questions involving dangling modifiers, also known as subject modifier placement questions. And first of all, just a little word on how you can recognize when you have one of these questions. It's actually pretty straightforward. These are going to be essentially the only standard English conventions questions in which you have lengthy answer choices and different word orders. So there's one example. Here's another one. And then along with those different word orders, what you're going to have are different nouns at the beginning of those answer choices. It's possible that two of them could have the same noun or equivalent nouns, but in general, they're going to be, very different. And that's going to make them, again, stand out in this portion of the test. Now, what is meant by the term modifier? A modifier is just something that modifies or describes something else in the sentence. And we could get into different types of modifiers, but with these questions, it's just going to be something that opens the sentence. Like in this case, in examining the architecture of Antoni Gaudí. Okay, so that is describing something. And then the key to getting the right answer is that whatever it's describing needs to come right after the comma. In other words, whatever this stretch here is describing, that noun needs to come first. Okay, and so what you can do to make these questions easier is to basically take that modifier and turn it into a question. So, who or what examines, that's an A, examines the architecture of this person? Would it logically make sense to say many historians? I think so, but let's check the others. Gaudí's Gothic influences, that doesn't make so much sense. It's really Gothic influences, or any kind of influences, are not capable, logically speaking, of examining architecture. So that does not work. C, there? No. There can't examine architecture. So a lot of times they're going to put there or maybe it at the beginning of these questions, and you want to be mindful of the fact that those are probably incorrect. And then finally, the focus of many historians. Many historians versus the focus of many historians. Well, in examining the architecture, the historians might focus on certain things, but it's not the focus itself that is examining the architecture, it's going to be the historians, and so that would indeed be our correct answer. And so in the subsequent examples, we'll see some different twists on this type of question, but that's always going to be the key thing, being really precise about what the modifier is describing. And so on to the next example, revolutionizing the way scientists analyze genetic material blank. And so our answer choice needs to start with a noun that could possibly revolutionize the way scientists analyze genetic material. So I'm just going to call it the CRISPR system's impact. We could even stretch it out to here. The CRISPR system's impact on molecular biology. Well, that is not what revolutionizes the way scientists analyze genetic material. And I can come back to that in just a second. Maybe we'll put a question mark there, but that's probably not going to be correct. Okay. A profound impact on molecular biology. No. A profound impact, the CRISPR system's impact. So when I said a couple of minutes ago that they might be equivalent nouns, this is kind of what I was alluding to. Impact. Really, both of these are emphasizing the impact. And it wasn't the impact that revolutionized the way scientists analyze genetic material. It was the system itself. Okay, the CRISPR-Cas9 system, I'm not sure how that would be pronounced, that has had a profound impact on molecular biology. It makes sense. That's the kind of thing that could, have that kind of impact, that could revolutionize the way scientists work. And then finally, with D, which is not going to be correct, molecular biology. So I put the squiggle under the noun in each case. That's what I'm emphasizing. We've got our modifier and then our subject. And the one that starts with the correct subject is going to be answer choice C. Now, something else to emphasize about this type of question is that quite often, one or more of the incorrect answers are going to include or make use of the passive voice. So that highlighting color is not so great, but has been made by. Passive voice, what is the passive voice? You get the passive voice when you have some form of the verb to be, so that's a form of it, the present perfect, and then by. So has been made by, this has been profoundly impacted by the CRISPR system. And it's not that the passive voice is guaranteed to make something wrong. It's not that it's grammatically wrong in and of itself. It's just that it's quite often something that's going to appear on these questions just because it's a way that you can rearrange the order of the nouns so that you have the wrong noun at the beginning. I saw one question on the Khan Academy, so that means it's an official College Board question, that did use the passive voice, but if I've seen 100 other questions, none of the other ones use the passive voice in the correct answer. So just something to note. Okay. Next one here, it is a little bit longer, at least it has 2 sentences. So, Marie Curie was a trailblazing physicist and chemist whose discoveries revolutionized science, considered one of the most significant achievements in modern chemistry. Okay, so in this case, our modifier is talking not about a person, but about an achievement. And so I usually say who or what, and I'll still do it, but it's going to be a what in this case. What was the achievement? What was the achievement? Which of these could logically, be referred to as an achievement? So in this case, it's not going to be the person, because she made the achievement or she accomplished the achievement, but she herself is not the achievement. And so we don't want our answer choice to start with Curie. B, Curie's discovery of the radioactive elements polonium and radium, or we could just simplify that to Curie's discovery. That makes sense. Her discovery was an achievement. Makes sense. It's probably going to be the correct answer, but let's check the other two. C says the radioactive elements, polonium and radium, were discovered by Curie. Okay, so a couple of things here. We've got the passive voice, and we've got the wrong noun at the beginning. And so those two things tend to go hand in hand. So the elements weren't the achievement, and she wasn't the achievement. Her discovery of the elements was the achievement. And so that one's going to be incorrect. And then D, it was Curie's discovery that... And no. So just like in that earlier example where we had the it here, it doesn't work either. We could call that what would we call it? A lost pronoun? I'm not sure, but it's not it that was the achievement. It was her discovery that was the achievement. And so that is going to be our correct answer. So again, it's all about being precise and not settling for something that's kind of sort of related to the noun. It's got to be the actual noun. And just a couple of other comments here before you move into the next series of examples. So a dangling modifier that's the name of the error. So our correct answer does not involve a dangling modifier. You could also call it a dangling subject, given that, especially in these questions, you're not moving the modifier, you're moving or picking the subject. But the reason it's called a dangling modifier is that it's not attached to the noun that it's describing. And so dangling, 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 attached, and therefore correct. The other thing is that dangling modifiers are just exceedingly common in writing, everyday writing that I'll see on blogs or newsletters or even in books, magazines. Usually an editor is supposed to spot that. A copy editor is supposed to spot and fix a dangling modifier. But I think partly just because they're so common and because we tend to sort of fill in the blanks as listeners or readers, don't always necessarily notice these things unless you're really paying attention to them, unless you're doing like I do and doing a lot of SAT grammar videos. I certainly notice them. But the fact that other people use them in other contexts doesn't make them correct on a standardized test.